Justice Alito recently said the purpose of qualified immunity is to avoid government suffering the burden of proving costs and benefits in court.
The justification for qualified immunity is not just that you want government officials to be able to take bold action. It's that you don't want them to be to have to bear the burdens of litigation, which can be quite substantial, when it may well be that they didn't do anything that was unjustified based on what they knew. So why doesn't that apply just as well here? Those policy considerations, why don't they apply just as well here?
This is an economic calculation that the cost of other institutions looking at what police are doing and telling them what to do is greater than the benefit of conveying the costs and benefits to strangers, of government activity as an incentive when police make decisions. Like most ideas coming out of academia, qualified and absolute immunity were rooted in the communist idea that information is cheaper than it is, from which originates this idea that we can cut out the middleman, cut out every institution except the noble factory worker, or in this case, the noble policeman. It was believed if factory workers could operate free from the burden of institutions like banks, middlemen, and advertising taking a cut, they could produce the same products more efficiently. They would use some other information paradigm or method of supervision to input the costs and benefits to strangers into their decisions. This alternative supervision paradigm is vaguely imagined as the collective will which can see and supervise everything, but the specifics of how the supervision works are never demonstrated. Immunity is the same communist idea, that factory managers can discover and serve local preferences without needing external incentives and information institutions, but transferring this utopian concept of the benevolent worker or factory manager to police and prosecutors. The idea is, if police and prosecutors can produce products without being burdened by other participants, the middleman of courts and law, they will create value more efficiently. In other words, if they can just do what they know is right, and they don't need anybody else to tell them what that is. Calling these external institutions a burden ignores the irreplaceable role that courts and law play in transmitting information and incentives necessary to discover and serve the preferences of strangers. Based on a belief in an imagined collective consciousness and goodwill somehow transmitting the same information, so that decision makers will have adequate information and incentives to make decisions that benefit strangers without needing the middleman of courts and law to convey costs and preferences. Justice Alito's idea that police and prosecutors will serve public benefits by making private decisions in each case without the burden of external information and supervision structures such as parasitic capitalists or judges taking a cut is utopian communism.